Recording in progress. Cute.
Yay.
Oh, hi. Um, it's really quiet on my end, but I can hear you good enough. Uh, something that I thought about. Do you have any ideas?
I
Some.
don't have any ideas.
Okay. Zero ideas. We have no ideas. I have so many scratches on me. I was reading through Crushed by Ruckus in the Current. The opening two chapters mention the difference between uh, the, uh, I don't know if it's not really the difference between enjoyment versus excitement, but it's more like the distinction between the two and how to have both at once and how to be excited for something, but also enjoy the moment instead of just be lost in like the excitement and anticipation and like craving and looking forward to something. And like you can do that, but also to just be where you are while that's going on, almost like enjoying the excitement. And it kind of plays into some ideas like uh, the how sometimes the idea of something more often than not the idea of something is a lot better than the thing itself. Like even I'm gonna go have this really crummy fast food burger and like the idea is good, yeah, I crave this, and then like you can enjoy that idea, but then when you do it, the idea was way better than when you do it, and then the person feels sick after. So it kind of plays into that side of it, and bunch of other angles. But it it's in the first two chapters of the story. It's kind of like the first arc or development. And I figured I don't even know, I can't remember what the rest of the book is or if they revisit it, but probably should be revisited to some degree. And yeah, it's just cool topic, so it kind of opens the door for things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like you need some sort of um, awareness or like an observer mind happening when there's either excitement or things that are like intense pleasure or moving in that kind of direction that people might call positive or whatever, right? Versus, or also having it when there's some kind of negative or intense thing on the other side. So how do you stay in the middle no matter what? You know.
Yeah, it almost it's probably more difficult too because even almost like the what the Buddha says, like the positive stuff is the more difficult thing to be equanimous with. So to just like it it's not an oxymoron, but the when people think how do I be more at peace, they're usually referring to the negative things. When there's turmoil in life and terrible circumstances, all this other stuff. How do I be happy? And we can look at it at that angle, but then there's that other side of it of there's great things about to go on or big things happening and it's all great and like just whoo, and then to be equanimous with that is the more difficult side. Like nobody thinks, how do I be at peace when they're like talking about how they're so elated and stoked for something?
I wonder if people don't think that just because, like, I wonder if it's harder just because it's not informed, that people don't know about that as an idea, or like understand it's just not taught or showed, in anything, right? So
Yeah.
I wonder if it would be harder if it was more vastly shared and thought about.
Almost like in a world where people have learned the tools. Like right now, people aren't even informed about what tools they have or like how the skills necessary to be at peace during something that's negative. So if people had the resources to just be at peace no matter circumstances negative or positive, would the positive still be the more difficult thing? Because right now when people are upset, they're not informed about what resources they have, but they're not informed that being super like cravey and stuff is also kind of a lack of peace, and they also aren't informed about the resources. So if the resources were there, would it balance out, and then people would start to look at that positive stuff and be like, oh yeah, the this is obviously difficult to be at peace with when I'm really really craving something or I'm really stoked on something like that. That it would almost maybe be a lot more obvious if people had that resource level. But right now we don't even have the resources, so nobody thinks to even consider that you can be at peace while being excited. Yeah.
And I wonder though if there's like a, I mean, I don't know if this, like, what would Buddha say is actually harder, or would he say it's the same? You know, just how like in Pali there's only one word for craving and aversion. It's not two different things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Dukkha. Yeah. The it's weird- this is kind of another topic, but it's weird how English is like that, where the in most languages, like if I say I dropped this, the we might have mentioned at some point, but like the in most languages they have a distinction, like two different things between I intentionally dropped something and I accidentally dropped something. And in English, we just say I dropped it, and it's like, did you mean to? Like, wasn't it an
you have
accident?
to add accidentally or
Yeah, like
intentionally.
there's no we have no two different things for that, but then we split craving and aversion, and then like they're both kinds of attachment, and we've split that. So it's weird we split some things and not other things, and then a language like Pali is the exact opposite, and it makes way more sense. Yeah, or at least the distinction also makes sense that but craving being away from that something is aversion. You're craving being away from it, so it's the same thing. But I guess that distinction of I want to be away from something or I want to be to something, like we make that distinction without, and then we lose the fact that they are the same.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose it's more a question of what is more a functional way of speaking about something that like gets people to really understand what they're saying more than if I could say it 100 different ways. Well, do I still, does that matter if I don't understand the thing that I'm actually saying at the root or at the, more fundamental level?
Yeah. There's a uh, somewhat related note. There's some words that I just completely avoid using when writing the novels. One of them is the words like uh, what's it like? I mean something like oh, I went to the store. I mean, I went to this place to look for something. I avoid that phrasing.
Because you're
And
saying that me or originally comes from something.
yeah, almost like attacking the statement, like this is the thing. It's like no, this is the thing. So I've invented words like and so, and I just fuse them together. So and so. So it's like I went to the store, and so it's just like rephrasing it. So like things like that. But there's probably so many phrases and words in English that we could shift. Like I dropped this and I didn't drop this. I would have to completely invent a distinction there, rather than just adding words like I accidentally dropped it or I intentionally dropped it. Like instead of adding words to invent a it's like Shakespeare invented all the words because like English doesn't have what I need. So he just invented stuff. And to do that is almost necessary, especially when talking about like the enjoying a moment. Like that's not even in the literacy of the way people speak about a moment. So how do we even begin to consider things like I'm enjoying my excitement? And it's like, so you're excited. It's like, no, no, I'm excited, but I'm enjoying the fact that I'm excited. Like the excitement is the thing that I'm enjoying. And while I'm also just being at peace, like it's a terminology and a framework or a playground that isn't played in as much as people would like to if they knew about it. To lack
So
of
you're, so you're saying the novels would be a lot shorter if you,
actually,
if you didn't know this.
oops, just cut everything down, cut all the words out. One thing that I did do that's kind of funny, this more related to the stories, but
Except
is
the glossary would be huge if you did that.
yeah,
Have
yeah,
a huge glossary in a short book, or have a long book and no glossary.
100,000 word glossary that's explaining the 50,000 word book.
Yeah.
Yeah. The is one thing I did with the story recently is I was working through these, just going through it and trying to well, something I'd never done with the first book was actually separate it into individual chapters. Like I've always had it in chunks, So I finally did that and discovered that it's 96 chapters. So like I finally did it. It took me 2 whole days to go through everything and cut each thing out and make separate documents and label them because like you can't do it alphabetically or whatever because there's like sorts it alphabetically. So I had to like find new labeling mechanisms to keep them in order, and it was chaos for 2 days, 2 whole days. Like I didn't do anything else. But it's what's kind of fun about it is it was like restructuring the way I was looking at it. So then it almost feels like like it's not like I know the story better or something now that much because it's like I had it in a really good order. Like the way I was doing it was really organized. That's why I was able to do so much of it. But now that I've just restructured it, it almost like reorients the way that I need to work on it because now I have to just open different documents in different orders to do different things, and it's just like now I can have different angles of looking at something. All I did was like move a few things around, but it was more the mentality of it of like, okay, now I can, everything was already in order. It was all already chronological. I already knew how big each document was, but now that I have it all laid out, it's like I've mentally scattered the pieces in my mind, and that has also manifested in material form on the documents, like just scattered pieces to so I can like start going through and like that one and then that one and then that one and like kind of fill them out. So it's like just the mental orienting has now come fruition here, and now I can see things in that way too.
Did you have it all in one document, or what was the deal?
No, I separated it all in one folder, but everything is a separate document. And yeah, so there's like one that says Act One notes, which is like I used to have them in acts. So it was like Act One notes, and then that Act One used to have 7 chapters in it. But now I have Act One notes, Chapter One, Chapter Two, Chapter Three, all the way through Act Two notes, Chapter to Chapter.
Which is
So yeah,
bigger sections.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
messier, it's chaotic. But the one of the first notes that I wrote like probably a month ago was "get sloppy." I just wrote that in big bold letters at the top of the one of my pages on my like little paper thing. I just wrote "get sloppy," and now it is finally manifested in material form. It is just a sloppy mess of all the little things scattered about, and yeah, it's funny. Just I changed my state of being of like the way I wanted to approach how I was going to proceed. And then everything is like slowly moving in that new mental direction rather than me like trying to chop everything up and be like, how do I do this? I was like, I instead of like or looking at the stuff and being like, how do I work with this? And then relying on it to change my state of being or my mind about it or something. I was like, what do I need to become so I can work on this differently? I'm like sloppy, just a chaotic mess. It's like just a huge cluster of like pile and slop. And then and then trust myself that if I come to a part and like I don't know what to do there. I'll figure it out when I get there or when like at some point, but just like let it be a slop. And because I kind of reoriented my approach and my state to that, everything has really become sloppier, but at the same time cleaner. Yeah.
I guess it makes me think of the video that you sent me about Prince's creativity
Mm.
process. And maybe something to talk about would be how, because I was watching it, I watched it, and he has different points. Like, well, he talks about, what Prince did, and it's like, okay, he played like a track, and then right away went to the next track, and then right away, the next track, and then like produced a song like every single day, and was like always creating and recording, and would go to perform at a show, and then play for 4 hours doing sound check before anyone showed up, and then play the show, and then play until
You
he had
passed
to
out on the purple
fly.
sheet.
Yeah, until he had to fly to the next place to do the same thing over again, and just yeah. So like what? Because I was thinking, how do you what in there could I apply to art or different things, And you were talking about applying it to the novel writing. How and what does that mean? What exactly are you doing?
Yeah.
Or is that part of sloppy? Like, is that
Not really, but uh, the let's see, if there were parts of it that are really distinct and immediately applicable to the project, uh, it would be like the when there's almost more like when, because I have so many things, I have like that encyclopedic just like perception and memory of all these things going on. When I'm working on one thing, I just naturally end up doing a bunch of other stuff, and it's almost like at the end, Prince would make a single album that has like 10 to 20 songs on it, but he's recorded 200, and those 200, it's almost like the kill your darlings mentality, like made 200, but it wasn't the right fit, it wasn't the right theme for this song, so he tucked it away. And that's almost like my oven of ideas, my baking folders that are 130,000 words, 120,000 words. My writing craft pile notes about how to write a book is 120,000 words at this point, and like most of them is repeated notes or just like ideas, and it's just spammed. And then a lot of this novel, like with this book that I finally chopped up into chapters, some of the chapters are like 10,000 words long and have like 5,000 words of actual written chapter you could read, and then like 5,000 words of notes interspliced between chunks, like saying, just what needs to change or what to foreshadow or something like that. And it's just like, I could cut half of this out. Like, what is the coolest part of this? Like, how do I make it efficient and like know when to cut at the most interesting things? So like, I would be most excited to read it, or like, what makes this the coolest? Like that type of thing. And then take all the cool stuff, even though it's a lot of fun, just oven of ideas or something, like whatever. It's in there. Like it's in both the I made the material of it, and it's just I get it. It's kind of in my state of being. So it's even if I wanted to rewrite a chapter and didn't have to, like a topic like excitement versus enjoyment or something, I could probably rewrite an entire 2,000 word chapter of characters talking about that, or like how that's manifesting in whatever they're just going about their day and how it would come about, and like the different kind of things that would make them think of or like consider enjoying their excitement. Like I could just write that over and over again, and I'd probably use a lot of the same words but differently, and like it would come about differently and all this other stuff. So I don't need to have all the content that I've written, so I can shove it away like Prince does, just put it in the vault. And like almost like chances are, if you looked at all 10,000 years of Prince's material, because he's just recording so much, there's like 100 songs in there that sound really similar and have that similar feel, and maybe some repeated lines and things like that, because it's just so much material. So he didn't need all that, and maybe none of those lines or songs even made it to the public, but they were in there and they were part of his musical process and like practice and all this other stuff to make really good whatever the few things that he did really well that he wanted to put out in the public. Those were all there for that. So he's like working on thousands of things, and then once in a while he's like, that's a good one, and that's a good one, and this is something I want to do, so I'm going to try doing it. And then while he's trying to do that, he does like 10 other things, like records 20 other songs on tour, goes home, finishes the album, like that type of more that type of slushy. It is sloppy in a way, but it's more like just the equanimity of, this does not need to be refined to such an extent that it's like perfected. Like it doesn't need to. I don't need to reiterate or iterate this like 20 times, because the 21st time I do it, it'll be just as good as any of the other 20 times. So I can trust myself that like when it comes to a scene where this chunk that I pulled out of another novel because it was just like didn't really need to be there, but it's really cool. The scene that I end up writing when that moment comes up is going to be as good as that chunk I pulled out. So I don't need to like consider it or like have it in mind or save it and like make sure I take note of it or whatever. It's just it's in the oven of ideas, but I'll make it good when I come to it. So like that kind of ease with excessive amounts of content, and knowing and trusting that whatever I end up doing now is going to be, it's like I'll know whether this is something that it's gonna, in a year, if this isn't in the novel or isn't something that's like refined and published or whatever, it's whatever. But maybe it will be. But I'm gonna do it anyway. So just do it. Record the song. Record the song. Record the song. Write the chapter. Write the chapter. Write the chunk, and then eventually just be like, okay, now here's the novel, and I can cut all those out and just put what needs to be in the novel in there, and yeah, and then move on to the next novel because we've got we planned to 30. I don't need to make World 9 Crushed by Rockets in the Current like the perfect World 9 Crushed by Rockets in the Current. It's going to be as good as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of trusting that the repetition is just adding up with like skill wise, and then when you want to do something, you're going to be capable of doing it to a degree that's quite good, and then having that equanimity to let it go and whatever, and then also um like trusting or knowing that you can grab things that are like half done, or you did once, and then bring those back into the mix at any point, and work with that.
Yeah. Like that's yeah, mixing the Prince excessive production stuff slash mixed with sloppiness, but also it tails back to kind of enjoyment and excitement of like, if I'm enjoying the process now and I'm excited for doing things, just that alone is going to make the stuff good because I'm excited to do it and I'm enjoying it. And if I'm enjoying it and I'm excited to do it, like chances are it's okay at least. Like it's at the very least decent. And like this kind of reminds me of things like in the past how I might not play Smash Bros or drums or whatever it was, but I was really good at one point. So now I can kind of pick up any of those things that I used to be good at. Like, the last time I played hockey was 5 years after I stopped playing hockey. And I ended up being really good after a few hours of like I ended up playing for 9 hours on a mountain while others went like skiing and stuff. But by the end of it, most of my skills had at least come back to some degree where because I was just having fun or whatever, and like I could kind of in the past it was more so I just like had the innate trust that if I picked up a Smash controller, I'd be able to be good at it. If I picked up drumsticks and sat at a kit, I could play and I'll figure it out. And I think with novel writing, kind of a cool little development, it was that swing between I need to refine this because I'm not good at it. Like I've never been good at writing novels. So I'm like, I've got that mentality still of I'll figure it out and make it good. And I can trust myself to make it good. But I'm also what exactly is good and how do I make it good because I don't have those tools yet. So then there's like mix of like I'm trying to develop these skills and do these tools while getting good at something while also trusting myself that it will be good and all those kind of mix for me to focus on like refining something or making sure that the whatever I'm writing is like good enough to publish or is like something that I will save because I need to put it in something because this is like I definitely have worked on it refined those skills and been focusing on making it good and all this other stuff. So I know it's good, but because I did that, I don't need to save this because I have the skills now and I know how to refine things. So my next thing will be good. So it's like I'm kind of in that swing between like I did the things so good and developed the skills through it and all this other stuff that I want to keep it and I want to use it or like that's still in the mindset that like this is good. This is what I was doing it for. But then it's like I'm just gonna I'll play another song. I'll play I'll have another smash match and like I can trust that that next one is gonna be fine too. And then there's that balance of like what do I keep and what do I don't
Yeah, yeah,
and it's coming down to that point where it's like I'm on the swing on the end cap of something that I was excited about, which was writing one of these novels, and I've enjoyed it along the way. But now it's like I could finish this pretty quick. But then it's like I've never finished something before, so I've got that swing again. Of like I gotta get the skills so I know I can finish it, and then this is gonna be it's just World 9. Just do it for World 9. It's good enough, and trust that the next one's good. I don't have to like cram everything into this and like learn all of the skills and all of it. Just
yeah,
it's just this. It's just that. Yeah, and almost that same mentality has scattered each individual chapter. It's like just this chapter. Just this chapter's fine. Like I've you know
yeah.
cut it to
A-
pieces that way.
As I've been editing the book I'm doing, I've just been choosing chapters at random, and because it's I don't need to like restructure the whole book or anything, and I'm just choosing these chapters, and I'm just okay, like try to make the first paragraph like a good intro paragraph, as if it was the intro of the book, and that and it had to be like an engaging first paragraph, and then just tie up this little chapter as if it's just like the only chapter in the book, and just finish that and make that good. And yeah, just breaking it down to finishing this little piece, and this paragraph and this paragraph and this, and then this little chapter, and that's it. And I just got 39 of those, and then
Easy.
thing's done. Yeah,
Yeah, I just got 96,
yeah,
and I want to cut most like about a third of them. I think are going to be not cut out entirely, but like fused with other chapters, and just like because like an example is one is these the characters are like skipping water stones and all this other stuff, like just like doing cool stuff. But then it's like people came to see really trippy things, not just the slice of life moments. So can I sandwich this with their fighting for survival somehow? Like just take the slice of life and sandwich it with something else, and like shove that both in a chapter, and then make it a cool intro beginning and that cool end type of thing. Like just as you were saying there, like when to cut it, and like that's probably going to cut off quite a bit at the beginning and end of each thing, and then taking two chapters and fusing them together. It's like there's gonna be a little sandwich in the middle that would be a beginning and end. It's now gonna just streamline one from one circumstance to another, and so I'm gonna like cut a lot. But yes, it's just 96. It's just 39 chapters, like just 39 little pieces to make really cool, and that's it. It's easy. Yeah, and each one of those is like some might be better than others in some ways, and some might be worse than others in some ways, but they're what they are, like what they're good for, what they are. Yeah. Like, even the thinking of Purple Room songs, like our old band played, like we had 16 songs or something, but to this day I still sing Smile and Credit randomly while at the bakery and stuff. Like those songs are so dang good. And then I remember like the intro to The Machine Without Sound and being like, after we wrote The Machine Without Sound, which was like the first song we wrote, I was never like the hugest fan of it, but then I ended up starting to like it more when we added like the without sound part to the beginning and like little things along the way. But now, if like we rewrote it, we would do it so much differently and way better. But like at the time, it was hard to just we had that piece, and we couldn't just tear that piece apart and rebuild it. But now, like we did so many pieces, we could have just been like, well, cut like half of it, and then figure something else out and make that as good as the others. But like at the time when we were playing Purple Rooms, like it was not one of the really, really refined ones. Like some of those others that we put like so much work into. We just kind of played, it happened, and
yeah.
then it could have been amazing, but we never bothered with it as much as Smile or something. And like it was a yeah, little things like that. And the same with chapters in a book. It's like this one, we do have we can tear it apart, but knowing when to or if we should and all this other stuff, like it was really good for what it is. Like Machine Without Sound was, you can tell it was an intro chapter, but it was good.
I was listening to the Bono audiobook, Surrender, it's called, and he talks about when they got Brian Eno to be their sound producer, who I don't know what company or whatever he worked for, but it's just interesting to think about like what, and it's kind of like depressing, or it's like, oh, one, it'd be amazing to see what Purple Room songs could have turned into with uh more in like we were such a weird mix of like just kind of playing and not really being serious half the time, but sometimes being serious, and like I don't know, um and then but having some like actual like master audio producer person have input. And like Bono talked about how they've worked with these people to who really helped them find U2's voice and sound
Their
and
sound, yeah.
unique style that they were able to encourage out of the artists in the U2 band. which we never had. It's just
Yeah,
like,
no,
you know, kind of
no. But you
kind of
guys were like,
you encouraging stuff out of the rest of us in a way. Um,
yeah, but like you enjoy or we're still learning the instruments.
yeah,
And like yeah, it was I don't know what Purple Room was, but it started with like, we had 20 people in the music room just shoved in there and just being like, invite everyone, and then like it filtered down and it still carried that vibe of like, we don't know what we're doing, all the way to the end of like, hey, let's just get together and play 3 times a week, and half the time we play Smash Bros or something, Hellbox for like 3 hours. It's like just hanging out. But yeah, the to actually record those, which you got to send me those recordings of, or like you said, they're on DVDs or
well, I
discs.
gave Chris a CD, so ask him.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe upload them to YouTube so we could have the links, and I could put them on like an unlisted playlist would be kind of fun.
I don't know if I know how to do that because
Do it.
yeah.
Do it. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody else came to mind when chatting about that. Oh, I was talking with Troy today about kind of Hollywood having almost the opposite thing, almost like a more of a problem version of it, where you have a good sound guy to bring out U2's voice in Hollywood. Like I was looking back at in the 2000s and stuff, and it was amazing how good the movies were. Like I don't know like what the list would be, but it's like you look at one year and it's like the first Matrix comes out at the same time as the second Lord of the Rings, at the same time as the first Pirates of the Caribbean and Shrek. And it's like four movies that were like awesome hits in a single year, in every single years like that, all throughout the 90s and early 2000s, and it just kind of went downhill from there. And I think a lot of it was instead of sound guys joining a group of artists that are like passionate about doing something new and whatever and bringing out their voice, it has now turned into like very quickly it turned into producers thinking they know what sells, almost like what Frank Zappa said about music. Like when music started to go through the same course, is like producers think they know what to sell and they know what they can sell, so they only look for exactly that and want people to make that. So then that's all you end up hearing, and then everybody gets sick of it, and then it it just like goes downhill really fast. And the same thing is happening in the book industry apparently, like quite a bit, and has been for like maybe a decade or so, of just traditional publishing. Like traditional publishing knows what they can sell in a bookstore because they know how to label it, all this other stuff. So then the only people that they'll accept, like any books that they accept, will have to fit within those criteria. And then the only people that bother sending traditional publishing or like querying or anything like that are writing those types of books, and they're all kind of derivative or just not that. Rather than it being about these artists who are like, let's do Star Wars, and then
Yeah,
the producers are like, how the heck do we sell this? Let's figure it out. It's
yeah.
now producers are like, we need this because we can sell that, and
We
then the
need a
artists are
Star.
like,
No, we need a Star Wars movie.
yeah, like instead of the it's starting with the artists who have these amazing creative visions to just passion to do whatever they want to do, and it's starting from there, and then sound guys coming in and be like, let's do this. It's now it like that used to be where all the enjoyment and excitement was from, and instead of the
Yeah.
marketing side of it being like, we're excited for this new thing, how do we figure out how to market it, it's taken the enjoyment and excitement out, and now it's all just about marketing hype. So the excitement's there, the joy's gone.
I was
And
talking to this artist guy the other day, and he was saying how Disney doesn't like art. It's like Disney doesn't care about art. They care about money, and they care about art as much as it makes them money. But if you think about back in the day, the original Disney animators doing
they're
hand
all about art.
animation, that's what made Disney what it is, and it was the artists making art for the sake of art. Like there's no way you could have had the animated movies you had back then
They're
if
innovating,
if
like,
people didn't care about art at all. Like them.
yeah, like back then when they like just any videos of like that you get to see the animators, they're so stoked and passionate about like just some technique that they invented for the first time on how you
Yeah,
would like use this, like animate something, or like just so stoked on it. And now if you see behind the scenes, it's like, this is going to sell really well.
yeah,
Like this is what people want. Yeah.
yeah. need more heart centered artists who have the ability to, or and heart centered producer people who can support them,
Yeah.
or the artists just doing it themselves or whatever.
Which I think is a huge part of why the independent, it's not really independent because there's huge teams behind it, even for like a novel, which is just one person writing, there's huge teams usually, is the indie or self-produced movies, self-produced games, self-produced whatever. Sure, anybody can make the stuff, which means that there's going to be a lot of just people spamming things because they don't like whatever. But anybody can make the stuff, which means the people who would have done something amazing that would not have been able to before because the resources weren't there, they can now do it. So there's something amazing out there. And there's probably way more amazing stuff that we can find just because we can't find it because it's not marketable or so it doesn't fit in like if you look up something whatever on Netflix or want to purchase something on Amazon or a story or a movie or like anything, it's almost impossible to find because it has to fit within what you would search for. But it doesn't cater to what the crazy art cool stuff that other people would make. Like there's no keywords for those specifically, so it doesn't work. And we just wouldn't know what to type in. But yeah, different
That's right.
landscape. But I see that coming in the future of people like Kickstarter is huge. The biggest Kickstarter in the world was for a book. I can see why. And like, the Rivals of Aether 2 game coming out, like a new Smash thing, entirely independent. It's working off of Kickstarter, like things like that, where people have a passionate thing, they want to do it, and then they find some way of reaching the communities that would support it, and then artists are gonna bloom despite all the scare about AI or Amazon taking over and all this other stuff. It's like, no, it's just gonna give people access to do cooler things. And inevitably, like there will be ups and downs, but yeah.
And have an interest in doing art because they're bored of seeing all the AI stuff.
Yeah. Try watch the Japan's new Godzilla and compared it to the Godzilla that we saw like the American versions, and he's like, "We're gonna get Godzilla versus King Kong soon. It's gonna be a great thing for animators to animate these amazing battles and all that stuff. Like, so the animators will have fun and like choreographing fight scenes and stuff. But Godzilla minus one out of Japan had this story in there. Godzilla's like shows up 3 times or something. And it's just like this heart wrenching story in it, and like there's just there's now avenues for everybody to do anything. So the like any kind of thing you want, it's out there. Yeah.